Here we go then. Six Nations Week, the first week of the 2024 Championship. And who are the favourites? Who have you got? Who do you think is going to win it this year? I did these videos a lot in the World Cup and they're always quite popular, so I thought it would be a good way on Monday to kick off the build-up to the opening round of fixtures this year. And where are you at? Are you one of those fans that as it gets closer to it, you start to talk yourself round to believing, you're starting to think that your team is going to do it and the patriotism is kicking in? Or do you go the other way, which tends to be how I feel, that you start doubting your team? You start thinking of all the reasons why it won't happen. Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you joining me once again. Drop a comment down below. Let me know. Who are the Six Nations favourites? Make sure you like the video as well and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It's between Ireland and France, right? I will come on to Scotland, England and Wales towards the end of the video, but it's between those two teams. Is there anyone out there, and I look forward to seeing if there anyone is in the comments, who genuinely believes one of those other teams are going to win it? Because I think right here, right now, I find it so hard to make that argument, although I will do my best, as I say, later on in the video. And it's Ireland or France because those have been the best two teams over the last 2 years. They have pretty much had a shootout for it over the last 2 years as well. Ultimately, it's come down to the result of that match has decided who's ended up winning the championship. And home advantage has been key here as well. So if we look at these two teams, it starts off on Friday night in Marseille. Is it, again, going to come down to the fact that France have got Ireland at home and therefore they're going to go on after Friday night and win the championship? It's decided the last two. Will it do so again? But it is interesting this year, I think, when you look at both the French and Ireland, because there are similarities in terms of some of the questions around them, as good a teams they are. And that starts with the Rugby World Cup. Both teams knocked out in the quarter-final against the eventual finalists in unbelievable matches. But is there any hangover from that? Do they use it as fuel that is going to improve their performances, or does it knock their confidence? In particular with France, maybe knocking confidence is the wrong turn of phrase, but for the French in particular, everything about that 4 years was about a home World Cup on home soil, winning it for the first time. And it didn't happen. And sometimes that's just the way things goes. World Cups are tough to win. They came up against the eventual winners. They lost by a point. That's how it goes. But is there any impact from that? And similarly for Ireland, an Ireland team that have done incredible things, I think will continue to be one of the very best teams in the world. But again, falling at that hard hurdle. And the shock, I think, for that Ireland team and the realisation when the final whistle went against the All Blacks that they hadn't done it, they hadn't been able to kick on. So I think that is something that's simmering in the background for the Irish and for the French in terms of looking at this Six Nations and how they're going to perform. The other thing that I think they both have is selection issues or selection question marks. And what I mean by this is the retirement of Johnny Sexton and Antoine Dupont going to the Olympics and not being available. So fly half for Ireland is a massive area of transition in this championship. It looks like Jack Crowley is going to be the guy to take it on. Has had some brilliant performances in his club career. How does he fit into the shoes that Sexton has left? And also, how does that team adapt to no longer having someone like Johnny Sexton that is almost like having a coach on the field in terms of his understanding of the game plan and the way in which he drags everyone with him to get to where they ultimately want to go to. In terms of France, as I say, it's Dupont and it's scrum half. I feel like it's less of an impact for France, which, and I might do a video about this actually later in the week, it sounds ridiculous because Antoine Dupont is probably the best player in the world. So how can losing him be less than losing Sexton is for Ireland? And, you know, a Sexton who's getting on into his late 30s. It's because, in my view, Maxime Lucu is the next guy to step up. It will be him and Mathieu Jalabert we expect at 9 and 10, who play together for Bordeaux and who are playing brilliant rugby. I think it is a easier transition for him to come in, whereas I think with fly half for Ireland, there are more question marks around it. So who are the favourites out of Ireland and France? Honestly, it's a flip of the coin. I'm going to go with France, I think, because of the home advantage. And because of what I've just mentioned, the players they have that can come in, the strength and depth in that squad once again, even though they do have some quite big injuries to contend with, I still think they're going to be able to do it. Having said that, this Ireland team, I think, are more than capable of winning it. And it wouldn't shock me at all. And actually, there's something about Ireland that they're ready to go again. Everything Andy Farrell does, I think, is to win here and now. If you look at Peter O'Mahony being made the captain, that is not a captaincy choice which has the next World Cup in mind. That is about a team that he wants to win now. And it wouldn't surprise me, given what we've seen from Ireland, how until that World Cup quarter-final, they had been just a bit of an unstoppable machine in that they could just deal with the challenges they were faced with. I think they will be looking Marseille Friday night, which is a brilliant stadium. The atmosphere is going to be incredible. You will not be able to get a ticket for that match. They will be looking at that and thinking, yeah, what a statement we can make here. First game of the year, first game of the Six Nations, away to France. Let's lay down a marker. So let's see how it goes. Out of the two of them, my gut instinct is for France. Let me know what you think if you agree with that. Let's get on to some of the other nations though. Because whilst I'm talking up Ireland and France, one thing I have heard mentioned a lot in terms of the discussion around the Six Nations this year is people thinking it won't be a Grand Slam. In which case it does open the door. If we buy into that philosophy that no team is going to do the Grand Slam, I think all of a sudden for a team like Scotland, then you look at it and think, well, okay, hang on a minute, maybe they could be on. Because that puts them in the mix. That means they only have to beat one of Ireland and France. And Scotland's big issue, throughout Gregor Townsend's reign, they have had some brilliant and notable results. They have England's number at the moment, and it wasn't so long ago that the Calcutta Cup wasn't really that much of a rivalry in terms of sporting competitiveness because England used to win it so regularly. They've completely flipped the script there. They've pushed all of the best teams in the world. They've consistently, over the last few years, been the third best team in the Six Nations, but they've never been able to do it against those top nations. We saw this in the World Cup a bit as well. Pitted in a pool with South Africa and with Ireland, they just weren't good enough to be able to beat those teams. That has been the question. It's still going to be the question, but the job gets a lot easier if it's not a Grand Slam that the other teams are going for. In particular, if you're looking at who can they beat out of Ireland and France, it's France at Murrayfield. France don't have a great record there over the last few years. Scotland have actually done pretty well against them. There's been the Mohamed Hawass red card in there and a few other bits of controversy. But their home record against France is pretty good. They will believe they can beat them. And if France aren't going for a Grand Slam, who knows? Or even if France are, let's say France beat Ireland on the opening night, but then they go to Murrayfield and Scotland beat them there, that opens up the championship as well. So I think it is possible if the results go their way. The big concern for me, I think, for Scotland is the front five in terms of being able to front up physically against the best teams and the front row depth. WP Nel, I've said it before, fair play to him for still being going at his age. But it highlights the issue with the pathways in Scotland and not having the players coming through. And I think that could end up being an issue, not having the competition for places, in particular in that front row. But we shall wait and see. That would be my argument. If you're trying to look at this and say outside of Ireland and France, why could it be Scotland? Though that's kind of the route that I go down. Let's finish off with England and Wales. With the greatest respect to Italy, I'm not including them in this conversation just because Italy's aspirations, Italy's goals are, I think, different to everyone else. And it's not to say that England and Wales are going to win it. I think it would be a huge shock if either of them did. But again, just entertaining the argument for, if you're looking to try and make an argument for why it could happen. With Wales, it's quite simple, and I don't think it'll happen at all. But they've done it before. Warren Gatland has taken Wales teams before, that before a ball has been kicked, no one would have been picking them to win the tournament, and they end up being able to do that. I think the challenges facing them now are more severe and different to previously, or they've got worse. They're probably similar challenges that have been exacerbated with COVID and with salary caps and all that sort of thing in the domestic game. So I don't think that is going to happen, but that is the argument that I would go down if you're really looking to try and convince yourself that Wales can be in with a shot of the title. I think they'll be closer to the bottom of the table. I think it's more likely that them against Italy on the final weekend comes down to who gets the wooden spoon. And with England, The general expectation with England is they will be better. I don't think that is going to be good enough, certainly to properly contend with Ireland and France. Could they beat Scotland? Depends what Scotland look like. We'll wait and see after this opening weekend. And the other thing with England is the fixtures are more favourable to them. And let's not forget, the Six Nations is a competition where momentum matters. We talk about it every year. It's almost a cliche when it comes to previewing. But momentum does matter, and England have not built any momentum over the last few years. They've always lost their first game or their second game. Their fixtures this year are Italy away, which isn't easy actually. It's not easy, but most people would say England can win that. They've then got Wales at home, as I just mentioned, Wales with all sorts of issues. So if they go 2 from 2, they're then away to Scotland at Murrayfield, always a tough place to go. As I've said, Scotland have had England's number in recent years. But let's just say, for argument's sake, England can go 3 from 3. Then you're looking at Ireland at home, a Twickenham crowd that is back engaged, their team vying for the championship. I'm just saying stranger things have happened. Who knows? Particularly going back to what I said with the Scots, if it isn't a Grand Slam year, if no team does a Grand Slam, if England could potentially get themselves to that final weekend heading to France, having won all their games, it's a stretch, I know, for argument's sake, then who knows? So those are my thoughts on it. What do you think? I'm saying France are the favourites. I think it's between them and Ireland again, which isn't a controversial statement. But what do you make of the other teams? For Scotland, for Wales, for England, in terms of the arguments that I have laid out. Look forward to reading your comments. Make sure you are subscribed as well. Don't miss anything on the channel throughout the Six Nations. Like the video as well, all that sort of thing. But I'll see you in the next one.